With the holiday season in full swing, Pew Research asked, where do you find your meaning in life? According to this research study, the majority of Americans, 69%, say family. Surprisingly, faith comes fourth at 20%. Joining me now to discuss is Family Research Council President Tony Perkins and Hemant Mehta, who is the editor of Friendly Atheist. Thank you both for being here. Your reaction to this, I want to start with you, Tony. Does this bespeak a dwindling of faith that we see God and faith as a meaning of life dwindling, sinking in the polls?
Actually, Raymond, I'm thrilled by this, that family is so high ranked in this survey, that people say that family is where they get their sense of meaning. That's actually a positive revival of family, if you will. I think if you look at how the United States, how the economy is doing in the United States, unemployment is low. It's not surprising that religion actually drops down lower in this list. It's still fourth. That's actually still pretty good, considering what's happening in other industrialized nations. When there's a downturn in the economy, when things start to fall apart, that's when people turn to religion. So from a sociological standpoint, I think this is accurate. From a theological standpoint, it is a bit troubling.
Hemant, your reaction?
Yeah, I agree. It should be troubling for religion. It doesn't surprise me one bit that people find meaning in family and experiences. And what actually surprised me the least about this is when they looked at young people specifically, I think faith became less of a meaningful experience for people who were younger than the age of 30. So it shows that faith has a lot of trouble moving ahead in the future, regardless of what the economic situation or social situation is in.
Well, Tony, you react to this, but Hemant, all the studies I've seen, faith is something that usually comes to people as they age in life, as they encounter challenges, and they deepen their understanding of the world and kind of get out of themselves. Right, Tony?
Raymond, what Jesus taught in Matthew 6 was seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you. That's what I was referring to from a theological standpoint, because when you set your eyes on the things on this earth, you miss the bigger things. And as you live for those things that are transcendent, then all the other things fall into place. But it is interesting when you look at the age, as people get older and they start dealing with the real issues of life and considering what happens after this life, there is more of a turn toward religion because they want to make sure they make that right decision.
Well, and those people who said that faith was important to them, it was the most meaningful thing in their life, so they feel it deeply, and that was an interesting part of that survey.
That was a small group of people. That was a small group of people, and again, when so many young people are finding more value in people they love and the ability to make the most of the one life that they have, they're not going to resort to religion later in life. That's a very optimistic spin that has no bearing in reality.
That's been a progression for decades, and it's not a small percentage. You look at black and white Protestants, it's 6 out of 10 say religion is the top issue for them. Conservatives, same thing. The divide is really, it's ideological. But I would say that the one thing that is encouraging, again, going back to this, it's a time to be happy and to
very
come
quickly,
together,
Tony, because I got another topic.
Family is top priority, and that's a good thing.
I want to get your thoughts on this, gentlemen. Nature magazine, the prestigious science magazine, came out against President Trump's proposal to identify sex based on strictly biological criteria. Nature tweeted this, editorial, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services proposes to establish a legal definition of whether someone is male or female based on the genitals they were born with. This proposal has no foundation in science and should be abandoned. Really? Hemant, I'll give you first crack at that. You think it should be abandoned?
Look, this administration has shown us since day one they don't care what science experts have to say about anything involving science. They would rather trust people like Tony, who base their entire knowledge of science based on page 1 of the Bible.
But Hemant, your genitalia, the way you're born, your sex does kind of tell you your gender. Isn't that scientific, Tony Perkins?
That is the least nuanced perspective you could possibly take on this issue.
Look, listen, this is what happens when people can't defend their position. They begin attacking the opposition. Look, the reality is that we base law and policy on fact, on science, on biology, not subjective feelings. And what the Trump administration is doing here is reestablishing what was in place for probably 50 years through the 1964 and 72 Non-Discrimination Acts, where sex is based on biology, not
We learn
on the
more as
subjective
time
new
goes
definition of
on.
gender. Well, then
If
let
this
Congress
administration
change
cares
it.
about science, they should talk to the people who study this stuff for a living.
Well,
They should look
then
at
that's fine. If
organizations
that's
that know this
true,
information.
If
Well,
that's
Nature
true,
magazine-
then the facts would be on the side of Nature magazine.
Yeah,
If the
Nature
facts
magazine is
were
a
on the side
magazine.
here,
It's not the people who do this for a
I
living.
don't need an education on science from someone who is known for rejecting it all the time.
Well, when you look down and see
Talk
what
to
your kid is
Congress.
born with, that's pretty biological and scientific to me. I think we can make a ruling. Gentlemen, thank you. Wish we had all day.